Eleanor Walsh, a devoted nurse and mother, faces heartbreak when her daughter Lisa excludes her from Thanksgiving, revealing years of taken-for-granted financial support. Stunned by Lisa's dismissal and her family's ingratitude, Eleanor cancels the mortgage payments she's made on their home for 7 years. This bold move sparks a journey of self-discovery as she confronts her sacrifices and reclaims her identity. With her sister Charlotte's support, Eleanor explores new paths, from pottery to a potential move to Arizona. Will she rebuild her relationship with Lisa or forge a new life entirely? The choice is hers, and the stakes are high. If Eleanor's story of resilience and transformation moved you, join our community. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of personal growth. Share your thoughts below and tell us where you're tuning in from. Don't miss tomorrow's special story. Click now to stay connected and inspired. The moment my daughter Lisa slammed her front door in my face, a fragile piece of me shattered. Not my heart, which had been slowly fracturing for years under the weight of her cold words and dismissive glances, but the final illusion I'd clung to, the belief that family meant more to her than my financial contributions. That evening, as the door's echo lingered, I stood frozen on her porch, clutching a still warm dish of homemade cranberry sauce, my offering of love and tradition. Inside, I could hear my grandchildren's laughter mingling with the voices of my son-in-law, Daniel, and his parents, apparently the worthy grandparents, whose expensive gifts arrived without the burden of remembering birthdays. The sting of exclusion cut deeper than I could have imagined, and as I drove back to my modest apartment, a resolve began to form, steadying my trembling hands. By the time I reached home, I was no longer the woman who had spent decades sacrificing for others. I opened my laptop, logged into my banking portal, and canceled the automatic mortgage payment I'd faithfully made for 7 years to the house Lisa called home. Then, with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, I called my attorney. My name is Eleanor Walsh, and at 63, I never imagined I'd be starting over. Most women my age are easing into retirement, doting on grandchildren, or embarking on long-planned adventures. Instead, I found myself rebuilding my life, learning to prioritize myself after a lifetime of giving everything to others. For 35 years, I worked as a pediatric nurse, drawn to the quiet joy of helping sick children heal. The work was grueling, the hours long and often heartbreaking, but nothing compared to the moment a child's fever broke or a parent's grateful tears. While colleagues chased promotions or higher-paying specialties, I stayed where I felt needed, even if it meant a tighter budget. My husband Thomas supported my choice, though it meant we lived modestly. When we had Lisa later in life, after years of longing, she became our miracle, the center of our world. Thomas and I vowed to give her every opportunity we never had, and I took extra night shifts to fund piano lessons, summer camps, and college tuition, sacrificing sleep without a second thought. My sister Charlotte once warned me, "You're spoiling her, Ellie. She needs to learn the value of hard work." But I couldn't bear the thought of Lisa knowing the hardships I'd faced growing up, wearing the same 2 small shoes for 3 years, their toes stuffed with newspaper. My mother, a cleaner, came home with raw hands and an aching back, and I swore Lisa would never endure that kind of struggle. When Thomas died suddenly of a heart attack during Lisa's sophomore year of college, my world collapsed. The life insurance barely covered funeral costs and medical bills, leaving me, a widow at 50, solely responsible for our mortgage and Lisa's education. My financial advisor urged me to sell the house, to downsize and secure my retirement, but I couldn't. That house held every memory of Thomas, every moment of Lisa's childhood. Instead, I took weekend shifts at a private clinic and rented out our basement, shielding Lisa from the financial strain that threatened to engulf us. After college, Lisa met Daniel, whose family dripped with old money, the kind that spanned generations. Their wedding was a lavish affair, funded mostly by his parents, though I poured nearly all my savings into it, determined to contribute. When Lisa complained that the $3,000 mother of the bride dress she wanted was only that price, I didn't tell her it equaled 2 months of mortgage payments. Instead, I found a discounted dress and spent 3 sleepless nights altering it to perfection. When Lisa and Daniel announced their first child and their dream of a house in Oak Ridge Estates, a prestigious neighborhood, I saw a chance to give her the security I'd always wanted for her. Without hesitation, I offered to cover the down payment and monthly mortgage until they were stable, assuring her it's what Thomas would have wanted. I didn't mention that it meant delaying my retirement and taking a second job consulting at a nursing home. For 7 years, I sent $2,450 every month, never missing a payment, even when I wired the money from a hospital bed during a bout of pneumonia. I poured love into their home, visiting often to care for my grandchildren, Adam and Sophia, cooking meals, and tending the garden. At first, Lisa and Daniel seemed grateful, sending thank you cards and inviting me to family gatherings. But over time, their warmth faded. Invitations dwindled, calls grew curt, subtle slights crept in, Lisa asking me to use the guest bathroom because the master was just cleaned, or Daniel frowning at my homemade cookies while store-bought ice cream sat in their freezer. They hired a nanny with professional credentials, gently pushing me out of babysitting duties, and enrolled the kids in exclusive programs, dismissing my offers to help with pickups. I told myself it was just modern parenting, but the contrast with Daniel's parents was stark. They were welcomed with open arms, their impractical gifts celebrated, their opinions sought on every decision. The week before Thanksgiving, Lisa asked me to help with holiday preparations, and I leapt at the chance to feel included. I arrived with groceries I'd bought, only to find Daniel's mother, Patricia, commanding the kitchen. Lisa, looking uneasy, suggested I set the table instead of cooking. For 3 hours, I folded napkins and arranged silverware while Patricia reigned, her smug glances piercing me. When I offered my cranberry sauce recipe, a dish Thomas adored, Lisa brushed it off. Daniel prefers the canned kind, Mom, you know that. I swallowed my hurt, focusing on being with family. But at the pre-Thanksgiving dinner, Daniel's toast to his parents, for always being there, for your generosity, and for teaching us what family truly means, cut deeper than any slight before. No one acknowledged my contributions, financial or otherwise. Only Patricia noticed, her victorious smirk searing into me. Later, as I cleared dishes, I overheard Lisa and Daniel in the study. Your mother seemed upset at dinner, Daniel said. Lisa sighed. She's always looking for attention. Ever since Dad died, she's clung to us like we're her whole life. It's exhausting. Daniel's reply was chilling. Well, we still need her for the mortgage, at least until my trust fund comes through next year. Lisa agreed, wishing I'd understand boundaries, and calling my thrift store clothes and stories of hard work embarrassing. Their words left me numb, the dishes in my hands forgotten. Was I just a bank account to them? Had I raised a daughter who could dismiss me so callously? I left without a word, unnoticed, and they didn't call to check on me. The next morning, I texted Lisa about Thanksgiving, hoping I'd misunderstood. Her reply was blunt. We're keeping it small, just us and Daniel's parents. The dining room gets too crowded. I'll save you leftovers. I was extra people now. Days later, on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I drove to their house with my cranberry sauce, a desperate attempt to salvage our bond. But when Lisa delivered her cold rejection, the kids are at a sensitive age, and your stories about growing up poor make everyone uncomfortable, and slammed the door, something inside me broke for good. That night, after canceling the mortgage payment, I called Charlotte. Remember when you invited me to live with you after Thomas died? I asked, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. The offer still stands, Ellie, she said warmly. Always has. I told her I was ready, but first, I had unfinished business. The next morning, I walked into Meridian Bank and emerged 3 hours later with a certified letter, my shoulders lighter than they'd been in years. I'd redirected my resources to pay off my own modest mortgage and build a retirement fund. No more extra shifts, no more postponed dreams. As I drove to Lisa's house one last time, I felt a quiet calm, not anger or revenge, but a reclaiming of my dignity. I admired the home I'd helped create, its manicured lawn and elegant facade, and allowed myself a moment of pride. Then I slipped the bank's letter into their mailbox, along with my own note. Lisa and Daniel, for 7 years, I have sent $2,150 every month to support your home, a commitment I made out of love. That ends today. I am choosing to invest in my own future, to honor the woman I am and the life I still have ahead. You once had a mother who gave you everything she had. Now you have one who knows her own worth. Happy Thanksgiving, Mom. As I drove away, Lisa's calls lit up my phone. I silenced them, focusing on the road ahead. This wasn't the end of my love for her or my grandchildren, but it was the end of a pattern that had drained me. In my apartment, I poured a glass of Cabernet saved from my 25th anniversary with Thomas, raising it to his photo. "You were right," I whispered, smiling. I was too soft on her. As I sipped, I opened a notebook to plan my future, a room with ocean blue walls in Charlotte's Arizona home, a life where I could finally breathe. When Lisa and Daniel arrived, pounding on my door, I took a slow sip of wine before opening it, ready to face them on my terms, a woman no longer defined by sacrifice alone. The letter from the bank lay on the table between us, its stark black print a quiet accusation. I looked at Lisa, my daughter, her face flushed with a mix of disbelief and fury, and Daniel, her husband, standing rigid beside her. "It's a notice from the bank, Lisa," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing in the room. "You canceled the mortgage payment." Lisa's eyes widened, her voice rising to a near shriek, sharp enough to pierce the calm I'd fought to maintain. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our credit score?" Her words trembled with panic, as if the foundation of her carefully curated life was crumbling beneath her. I could see the calculations racing behind her eyes, years of pristine financial records, her social standing, the image she and Daniel had built. It was all at stake, and she couldn't fathom why I'd let it come to this. I gestured toward the sofa, inviting them to sit, but they remained standing, too restless, too indignant. I sank back into my armchair, the worn fabric of familiar comfort against the tension in the air. "I've been making those payments for 7 years, Lisa," I said, my tone even, though the weight of those years pressed against my chest. 84 months of consistent support, not to mention the down payment. I think that's more than fair warning. Lisa's face tightened, but it was Daniel who stepped forward, his posture shifting into the confident stance I'd seen him use in courtrooms. Shoulders squared, chin lifted, as if he could argue his way out of this. "Eleanor," he said, his voice clipped with authority, "you made a commitment to help us. You can't just decide to stop on a whim. There are legal implications here." I raised an eyebrow, a spark of defiance flickering within me. "Legal implications?" I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "Please, Daniel, enlighten me. Is there a contract somewhere that says I'm obligated to pay your mortgage forever? Did I sign my name to some eternal agreement?" His confidence faltered just for a moment, and I pressed on, my voice calm but unyielding. "I offered to help until you were financially stable. You drive matching luxury SUVs. You spent $60,000 on a kitchen renovation last year. You took the kids to Europe for spring break. If that's not stability, what is?" Lisa's expression shifted, the anger giving way to something more calculated, a look I knew well from her teenage years. It was the face she wore when she wanted something, when she'd sweet-talk her way out of trouble or coax me into bending my rules. "Mom," she said, her voice softening, almost syrupy, "we're so grateful for everything you've done, truly. But we've built our lives around certain expectations. The trust fund doesn't mature until next year. If you could just keep helping until then." She trailed off, her eyes searching mine, as if she could will me back into compliance. "Like you kept including me in family gatherings," she added, a subtle jab that didn't go unnoticed. I cut her off, my voice sharp now, the frustration I'd buried for years rising to the surface. "Like you kept showing basic respect for the mother who supported you well into your 30s? Lisa's cheeks flushed, a fleeting moment of shame crossing her face before Daniel stepped in, his tone accusatory. "This is emotional blackmail, Eleanor. You're punishing Lisa because your feelings are hurt. That's not fair to the children." The mention of my grandchildren, Adam and Sophia, sent a jolt through me. I set my wine glass down harder than I intended, the clink echoing in the quiet room. "Don't you dare bring them into this," I said, my voice low but trembling with intensity. "This has nothing to do with them. I've tried to be part of their lives at every turn, only to be told my working-class ways, my practical gifts, are somehow detrimental to their development." Lisa's protest was weak, barely audible. "We never said that." "You didn't have to," I shot back, the words spilling out now, each one heavy with years of unspoken hurt. "You showed it in 100 little ways. When I offered to teach Sophia to sew, you said she should focus on modern activities. When I tried to help Adam with his science project, you hired a tutor because, what was it? Education's changed since your day, Mom. I stood abruptly, needing to move, to shake off the weight of their dismissal. Do you know what I heard at work yesterday? My colleague is taking her grandchildren camping this weekend. 3 generations, laughing, roasting marshmallows, telling stories. When was the last time you let me have that kind of time with Adam and Sophia? They exchanged a glance, uncomfortable, caught off guard by the rawness of my words. That's different, Lisa muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Different how? I challenged, my voice rising despite myself. Because my way of loving them doesn't fit the polished image you're chasing? Because it reminds you too much of where you came from, of the life you've worked so hard to leave behind? Lisa flinched, the truth of my words hitting home. Daniel slid a protective arm around her, his tone softening, conciliatory now. Look, Eleanor, I think we all need to take a step back. You're clearly upset, and we should have been more sensitive to your feelings. But making a drastic financial decision like this out of emotion isn't the answer. I laughed then, a sharp, genuine sound that seemed to startle them both. You think this is emotional? I asked, incredulous. Daniel, I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for nearly a decade. I've delayed my retirement, worked extra shifts that leave me so exhausted I've nodded off behind the wheel. This isn't a tantrum. It's a correction, long overdue. I crossed to my desk, pulling out a folder and handing it to Lisa. This is every payment I've made toward your mortgage. $25,800, not counting the $75,000 for the down payment. There's also a spreadsheet showing what that money could have earned in a retirement account. Take a look. Lisa's hands trembled slightly as she opened the folder, her eyes scanning the numbers. Her face paled, the reality of my sacrifice sinking in. Mom, she said quietly, we never asked you to give up your retirement for us. No, I agreed, my voice steady but laced with sorrow. You didn't ask. You expected. You accepted. You demanded. And then you took it for granted. Daniel, ever the lawyer, skimmed the figures, his mind clearly searching for an angle, an argument. Finally, he closed the folder with a sigh. What do you want, Eleanor? He asked, his tone blunt. If this is a negotiation, let's get to the terms. His words struck me, not for their audacity, but for their coldness, reducing everything, family love, sacrifice, to a transaction. This isn't a negotiation, I said softly, my resolve hardening. It's a boundary. I'm done subsidizing a life that has no room for me beyond my checkbook. The decision's made. Lisa's anger flared again, her voice sharp. So that's it? After everything we've been through as a family, you're cutting us off because we didn't invite you to one Thanksgiving dinner? It wasn't one dinner, I said, exhaustion creeping into my voice. It was a pattern, a slow, steady erosion of respect, of inclusion that ended with me standing on your doorstep, uninvited, like some stranger. I'm not cutting you off, Lisa. I'm redirecting my resources to my own life. There's a difference. What about the children, she demanded, her voice rising again. You're their grandmother. Don't you care what happens to them if we lose the house? The manipulation was so blatant it almost impressed me. You won't lose the house, I said, my tone firm. You and Daniel make more than enough to cover the mortgage. It might mean fewer vacations or delaying that pool you have been planning, but Adam and Sophia will be fine. Her next words cut deeper than I could have anticipated. If that's your attitude, she said, her voice icy, maybe it's better if you don't see the kids for a while, until you come to your senses. Even Daniel looked stunned. Lisa, he murmured, a warning in his tone, but she shook her head, doubling down. No, I mean it. If Mom doesn't care about her grandchildren's stability, maybe she doesn't deserve to be in their lives. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling like a stone in my chest. I felt an odd calm, a clarity I hadn't expected. This was who my daughter had become, someone who'd weaponize her own children to get her way. Lisa, I said softly, when you were 7, you broke my favorite teacup, the one from your grandmother. Do you remember what happened? She frowned, thrown by the shift. What does that have to do with anything? You hid the pieces under your bed, so afraid I'd be angry. When I found them, I told you people are more important than things. I still believe that. Your children are more precious than money, houses, or status. If you're willing to cut them off from their grandmother over a mortgage payment, then I've failed you in ways I never realized. Lisa looked away, a flicker of shame crossing her face, but I wasn't done. I think you should leave now, I said, walking to the door. When you're ready to talk without ultimatums or threats about the kids, you know where I am. Daniel hesitated, then guided Lisa toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. For what it's worth, Eleanor, I think there's fault on both sides. We could have been more appreciative, but this scorched earth approach won't heal anything. I met his gaze. Sometimes, Daniel, the forest has to burn for new growth to start. After they left, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, waiting for regret to hit. It didn't. Instead, a certainty grew within me, a sense that I'd finally chosen myself, and maybe in doing so, I'd given Lisa a chance to learn something too. I picked up my phone and saw a voicemail from Patricia, Daniel's mother. Her voice was crisp, judgmental. Eleanor, I'm shocked by your behavior. Family commitments should be honored, regardless of feelings. Call me back. I deleted it without hesitation. Patricia's world of privilege had no room for my reality. Extra shifts, delayed dreams, a retirement I'd pushed back for years. Tomorrow I'd change my number. Tonight I had plans to make. I opened my notebook, sketching out the next few months, work through December, sell furniture in January, settle in Arizona with Charlotte by February. As I wrote, I realized I was smiling, a real smile, born of hope, not obligation. The doorbell rang just after 9 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw Sophia, my 12-year-old granddaughter, clutching her backpack, and Adam, 15, lanky and awkward behind her. I opened the door, my heart lurching. Sophia, Adam, what are you doing here? How did you get here? Sophia rushed into my arms, her voice muffled against my cardigan. We took an Uber. Mom and Dad came home fighting about the mortgage, and Mom said we wouldn't see you anymore because you're being selfish. My heart sank, but Sophia's earnest blue eyes held mine. That doesn't make sense, Grandma. You're the least selfish person I know. You stayed up all night making my costume for the school play. You taught me to make bread when everyone else's grandparents just bought them phones. Adam spoke up, his voice cracking. You came to my chess tournament when Dad was too busy. You were the only one who clapped when I got third place. I ushered them inside, fighting tears. You shouldn't have come without telling your parents. They'll be worried. We texted them from the Uber, Adam said. Dad's on his way. We just wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm more than okay, I said, guiding them to the sofa. Your grandmother's finally taking care of herself. That's all. Sophia frowned. But Mom said you're taking away our house. I sighed, searching for words they'd understand. I'm not taking anything that belongs to your parents. I'm just not giving extra help anymore. There's a difference. Is it because of Thanksgiving? Adam asked, his perceptiveness surprising me. Because you got uninvited? You knew about that? I asked. He nodded. Mom told Grandma Patricia in front of us. She said you'd get over it. The casual cruelty stung anew. It's not just Thanksgiving, I said. It's about realizing when a relationship isn't healthy for anyone. Like when you kept lending Jake your video games, Adam, and he started expecting them. You set a boundary, right? He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. Sophia wasn't convinced. But will we still see you? Your mom was angry when she said that, I said gently. Adults say things they don't mean sometimes. I'll always be here for you. The doorbell rang again. Daniel stood there looking frazzled. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. They took off before we could stop them. It's fine, I said. I'm glad they came. As the kids hugged me goodbye, I whispered that I loved them, no matter what. Adam paused. Grandma, are you really moving to Arizona? I'm thinking about it, I admitted. Your great-aunt Charlotte invited me. That's so far, Sophia said, tears welling. Daniel's tone softened. Your grandmother deserves to make her own choices, just like anyone else. If Arizona's what she wants, we should support her. I looked at him, surprised by the shift. Maybe there was hope yet. After they left, I added a page to my notebook. Grandchildren. No matter what happened with Lisa, I'd fight to stay in their lives. They deserve better than to be pawns in this mess. Just before midnight, a text from Lisa lit up my phone. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. There'd be time tomorrow. Tonight I slept deeply, unburdened for the first time in years. As I drifted off, I thought of Thomas, my late husband, and his words. "The right path isn't always easy, Ellie, but your feet know the way." For the first time since he'd been gone, I felt my feet finding their way again. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day, I woke early and made a proper breakfast. An omelet, golden and perfect, a luxury I rarely allowed myself. As I savored each bite, I realized how many small joys I'd sacrificed for others. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Lisa and a text from Charlotte. "Weather 75 and sunny here, just saying." I smiled, snapping a photo of my gray, drizzly view, and sent it back. The future felt open, full of possibility, and for the first time in years, it felt like mine. As I scrubbed the last of the breakfast dishes, the clink of porcelain echoing in my small apartment, a knock came at the door, soft, tentative, nothing like the insistent hammering Lisa had delivered the previous night. Drying my hands on a worn dish towel, I opened the door to find Patricia, Daniel's mother, standing there in her usual impeccable attire, a cashmere sweater set that screamed quiet wealth, pearls gleaming at her throat, and a small gift bag dangling from her manicured fingers. Her presence was a jolt, like finding a rare bird perched on your windowsill. In all the years our children had been married, Patricia had never set foot in my modest home. "Eleanor," she said, her smile tight, practiced, the kind that never quite reached her eyes. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. I thought we might have a little chat, just the two of us." Her tone was polite but carried an undercurrent of purpose, like a diplomat arriving with an agenda. I hesitated, my hand lingering on the doorknob, then stepped back to let her in. My apartment, with its thrift store furniture and faded curtains, felt suddenly smaller under her gaze. She scanned the room, her eyes pausing on the mismatched chairs and the modest coffee table, her expression a masterclass in restrained judgment. "It's very cozy," she said, the word landing like a veiled barb. "You've done so much with the space." From Patricia, this was as close to a critique as she'd allow herself in someone else's home. I swallowed a dry laugh. "Thank you," I replied, my voice flat. "Coffee?" She nodded and I retreated to the kitchenette, grateful for the excuse to turn away from her scrutinizing eyes. As I poured water into the coffee maker, I could feel her presence behind me, perched on the edge of my sofa like a bird ready to take flight, still clutching her gift bag as if it were a shield. When I returned with 2 steaming mugs, she extended the bag toward me. "I brought you a little something," she said, her voice light but deliberate. "Just a small token for the holiday." Inside was a silk scarf, emerald green and undeniably expensive, but a shade so wrong for me it might as well have been chosen by a stranger. It was the kind of gift you give to someone you don't know well but feel obligated to impress, a gesture of courtesy, not connection. I ran my fingers over the smooth fabric, forcing a smile. "It's lovely," I said, setting it aside, the lie tasting bitter. "What brings you here, Patricia?" She took a delicate sip of her coffee, her movements precise, then placed the mug on the table with a decisiveness that signaled she was ready to get to the point. "I'll be frank, Eleanor," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "This situation with the mortgage is causing my son and his family a great deal of distress. Daniel shared with me that there may have been some misunderstandings that led to your decision." Her words were carefully chosen, but they carried an accusation, as if I'd acted out of spite rather than necessity. "Did he?" I kept my tone neutral, though my pulse quickened. I could feel the weight of her expectations. The assumption that I could be persuaded, reasoned with, brought back into line. "Yes," she pressed on, her confidence growing. "He mentioned you've been feeling underappreciated, which I can certainly understand. Mothers often bear the weight of unseen sacrifices." She paused, waiting for me to agree, to soften. When I didn't, she continued, filling the silence with her carefully rehearsed argument. "Family dynamics are so intricate, Eleanor. Lisa is young, perhaps not fully aware of the extent of your contributions, but cutting off financial support so suddenly, don't you think that's a bit extreme?" I leaned back, studying her. Patricia's world was one of hierarchies and unspoken rules, where certain family members were expected to give endlessly, while others received without question. I could see it in the way she sat, the way she spoke, the way she assumed her perspective was the only one that mattered. "What would you have done in my place, Patricia?" I asked, turning the question back on her. She blinked, caught off guard. "Well, I suppose I would have expressed my feelings more directly before resorting to such drastic measures." Her tone suggested she'd never had to make such a choice, that her life had always been cushioned by resources and deference. "I see," I said, my voice steady. "And when you express your feelings to Lisa and Daniel, they listen respectfully? They adjust their behavior to honor your perspective?" Patricia shifted, her fingers tightening around her handbag. "They're very considerate of our views," she said, but there was a flicker of discomfort in her eyes, as if she knew the ground she stood on wasn't as solid as she'd like. "That hasn't been my experience," I said simply, letting the truth hang between us. She tried a new approach, her voice softening, as if she could appeal to my sense of duty. "Eleanor, I know you've worked so hard your entire life. Nursing is such a noble profession." The pause before noble was heavy with condescension, revealing what she really thought of my career. A job, not a calling, in her eyes. "But surely you can see that Lisa and Daniel have built a certain lifestyle for the children, one that offers opportunities and stability." "A lifestyle built on my financial support," I pointed out, my voice calm but firm. "Support that was meant to be temporary, not a lifelong obligation." Patricia sighed, a theatrical gesture meant to convey patience. "Yes, well, plans change. Commitments evolve. That's what family is about, isn't it? Adapting to new circumstances." Her words were smooth, but they grated against my reality. A reality where adaptation always meant me giving more, stretching myself thinner, while they adjusted nothing. I couldn't help the sharp laugh that escaped me. How convenient that the adaptation always flows one way, from my bank account to theirs. Her expression tightened, a flash of offense crossing her face. "There's no need to be crude about money, Eleanor," she said, her tone clipped. "On the contrary," I replied, leaning forward, my voice steady but unyielding. "I think we need to be very clear about money. It's been the silent third party in my relationship with Lisa and Daniel for far too long. Did you know I've been delaying necessary dental work because the mortgage payments leave me with so little for my own care?" Her eyes widened, genuine surprise breaking through her polished facade. "I had no idea," she said, and for a moment I believed her. "Surely Lisa would have—" "Lisa never asked," I cut in, my voice quieter now but no less firm. "And I never complained. That was my mistake, one I'm correcting now." Patricia set down her barely touched coffee, her movements deliberate, as if she were retreating from a battle she hadn't anticipated. "I can see this conversation isn't going to be productive," she said, reaching for her handbag. "I had hoped we could come to some understanding." I stood as she did, my patience wearing thin. "What exactly did you hope to accomplish here, Patricia? Did you think you could convince me to keep funding a lifestyle that only includes me when there's a check to be written?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she adjusted the silk scarf around her neck and said, "I suppose we come from different worlds, Eleanor. In my family, we've always understood that those with more help, those with less. It's the natural order. And in that order, I'll always be the one with less," I said, my voice steady but laced with the weight of years of being overlooked. "The one expected to be grateful for whatever scraps of inclusion I'm offered." Patricia's cheeks flushed, a rare crack in her composure. "That's an unfair characterization." "Was it?" I pressed. "When was the last time you contributed financially to Lisa and Daniel's household? Paid a mortgage bill? Covered childcare costs?" She bristled, clearly affronted. "William and I give them lovely gifts. The children's education funds are well established. We contribute in our way." "Yes," I said, my voice low but cutting. "You give visible, prestigious gifts that burnish your image as generous grandparents, while I quietly keep their lights on. And somehow your contributions are celebrated, while mine are just expected." Patricia moved toward the door, her eagerness to leave palpable. "I can see we have fundamentally different views on family obligation, Eleanor." "Not obligation," I corrected, my voice firm. "Respect. That's what this is about. She paused, her hand on the doorknob, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. Instead, she offered something unexpected. You know, despite what you may think, I've always admired your work ethic. Not everyone could do what you've done, raising Lisa alone after Thomas passed. It was the closest she'd ever come to a genuine compliment, and it caught me off guard. I nodded, acknowledging the gesture. Happy Thanksgiving, Patricia. After she left, I sank onto the sofa, the weight of our conversation settling over me. Patricia's words had peeled back the curtain on a worldview I could never embrace. One where family was a hierarchy, where some were inherently more valuable than others. It was no wonder Lisa and Daniel had absorbed those attitudes. They'd been steeped in them for years. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Lisa. The children are upset. We need to fix this. Coming over at 2. I typed back. I have plans at 2, available at 4. It was a small lie, I had no plans, but it was a necessary boundary, a reminder that my time was my own. At exactly 4 o'clock, Lisa arrived alone. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face softer, more vulnerable than the defiant woman who'd confronted me the day before. She looked like the girl I'd raised, the one who used to curl up beside me during thunderstorms, seeking comfort. The kids are with Dad, she said, stepping inside. They're really shaken up by all this. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Children shouldn't have to carry adult burdens. Lisa sank onto the sofa, her shoulders slumped, exhaustion etched into every line of her body. Mom, what are we doing? How did we get here? I sat across from her, my hands folded in my lap. I think you know the answer to that, Lisa. She stared at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. Patricia came to see you. Yes. What did she say? I weighed my response. She expressed concern about how my decision affects your family's lifestyle. Lisa winced, a flicker of embarrassment crossing her face. That sounds like her. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. Look, Mom, I know things haven't been great between us lately. I can see now that we've been taking you for granted. Yes, you have, I said quietly, the truth plain but not cruel. But this, cutting off the mortgage payments, threatening to move to Arizona, it feels so extreme. Couldn't we have talked about this first? Worked something out? I studied my daughter, searching for the girl I'd raised beneath the woman she'd become. Lisa, I've been trying to talk to you for years. Every time I mentioned feeling excluded or suggested I might need to scale back, you brushed me off or changed the subject. That's not fair, she protested, her voice rising. I listened to you. When was the last time you asked about my life? I asked, my tone gentle but unrelenting. My health? My dreams for the future? She opened her mouth, then closed it, her silence an admission. I continued, softer now. When your father died, he left a small life insurance policy. Not much, but enough that I could have taken time to grieve. Instead, I went back to work after 2 weeks because your tuition was due. Lisa's eyes dropped to her lap. I didn't know that. You never asked, I said. You were young, and I wanted to shield you from financial worries. That was my choice, and I don't regret it. But somewhere along the way, my protection became your expectation, and your gratitude turned into entitlement. Tears welled in her eyes. So what now? You cut me off, move away, punish me forever for being selfish? I shook my head. This isn't punishment, Lisa. It's consequence. And more importantly, it's me prioritizing my own well-being. By leaving, she challenged, a spark of yesterday's anger flaring. By building a life that doesn't revolve around yours, I corrected. That might mean moving to Arizona. It might mean travel, new hobbies, new friendships, things I've put off for decades. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, then asked in a small voice, what about us? What about your relationship with Adam and Sophia? That depends on you, I said honestly. If you use the children to manipulate me, as you threatened yesterday, then yes, our relationship will suffer. But that wouldn't be my choice. She looked ashamed, her fingers twisting her ring harder. I shouldn't have said that. I was angry and scared. I understand, I said. But it showed me how you view family, as transactional, not unconditional. Lisa's shoulders slumped further. Daniel and I talked a lot last night. He he pointed out some things I didn't want to see about how I've treated you, how I've let his parents overshadow you because it was easier than standing up to them. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her candor. That couldn't have been easy. She shook her head. It wasn't. He also showed me the spreadsheet you gave him, with all the payments you've made. Mom, I had no idea it was that much. When you offered to help with the mortgage, I thought it was something you could easily afford. Based on what? I asked, genuinely curious. She shrugged, helpless. I don't know. I guess I never really thought about your finances. You always seemed to manage. I managed by working 60-hour weeks into my 60s, I said. By living in this small apartment instead of somewhere more comfortable. By driving the same car for 15 years. By making sacrifices you never saw because I hid them from you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Mom. I've been horrible to you. Part of me ached to comfort her, to wipe away her tears and say it wasn't so bad, as I'd done countless times when she was a child. But that instinct was what had led us here, to this moment of reckoning. Yes, I said simply. At times you have been, and I've enabled it by never holding you accountable. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so familiar it tugged at my heart. So what happens now with the house? That's for you and Daniel to figure out, I said. You have two good incomes. The mortgage is substantial, but not beyond your means if you adjust your spending. And us? She asked, her voice small. Our relationship? I considered my words carefully. That depends on whether you're willing to build something new, based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. Lisa nodded slowly. I want that. I really do. She hesitated, then added, Does this mean you're still moving to Arizona? I don't know yet, I said honestly. Charlotte's invitation gives me options I haven't had before. I need time to figure out what I want now that I'm free to choose. Is there... She paused, then pushed forward. Is there anything I can do to make amends? To start rebuilding trust? It was the first question she'd asked that wasn't about her own interests, and it sparked a flicker of hope in me. You can start by respecting my decision about the mortgage without trying to change my mind, I said. And maybe we could set a regular time for Adam and Sophia to visit me without conditions or cancellations. Lisa nodded eagerly. Of course, they'd love that. They talk about you all the time, you know. Sophia's been teaching her friends how to make your special bread. Has she, I asked, surprised and touched. Yes, and Adam's practically memorized that chess strategy book you gave him. They adore you, Mom. For the first time in our conversation, my eyes grew moist. I'm glad to hear that. Lisa hesitated, then asked, What about Thanksgiving? It's not too late. We could still have dinner together. Daniel's parents would understand. I shook my head. Not this year. I need space, and honestly, so do you. This is a chance for you to navigate a holiday without relying on me to rescue you financially or emotionally. She looked disappointed but nodded. I understand. As she prepared to leave, she paused at the door. Mom, for what it's worth, I'm really proud of you for standing up for yourself like this. It couldn't have been easy. I smiled, a small, genuine smile. It wasn't, but it was necessary. After she left, I returned to my planning notebook, adjusting my timeline with a sense of possibility that I hadn't felt in years. Arizona might be in my future, or it might not. For the first time in decades, the choice was mine, unburdened by obligation or guilt. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text, a photo of Adam and Sophia at their Thanksgiving table, smiling beside an empty chair with a handwritten sign, reserved for Grandma Eleanor whenever she's ready. My heart swelled, a mix of love and cautious hope. Healing would take time, effort, and likely some missteps, but this was a start, a small gesture that spoke of respect rather than expectation. I saved the photo and sent back a heart emoji, letting the simplicity of the moment carry its own weight. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived from Daniel's law firm. My stomach churned as I tore open the envelope, fearing a legal challenge despite the progress we'd made. Instead, I found a document transferring a portion of their home's ownership to me, equivalent to the contributions I'd made over the years. A handwritten note from Daniel was tucked inside. Eleanor, this should have been done years ago. Your investment in our home deserves formal recognition. This doesn't obligate you to continue payments, but it ensures your past contributions are acknowledged. With respect and gratitude, Daniel. I sank into my chair, the document heavy in my lap. It wasn't about the money or the property. It was about being seen, finally, after years of invisible sacrifice. That afternoon, during my shift at the hospital, Dr. Wilson, the chief of staff, stopped by unexpectedly. His visit was a surprise, but it marked the beginning of another shift in my story, one I'd never seen coming. As I stepped into the consultation room at Dr. Wilson's request, a ripple of curiosity stirred within me. In nearly 2 decades of working side by side at the hospital, he had never sought me out so directly. Our interactions were usually confined to the bustle of staff meetings or quick exchanges in the hallway about a challenging case. His gesture toward the empty room felt almost formal, and I followed him, wondering what could prompt such a private conversation. "Please take a seat," he said, closing the door with a soft click that seemed to seal us off from the hospital's constant hum. His voice carried a weight I wasn't used to hearing. "I wanted to talk about your retirement plans." My eyebrow arched instinctively. Retirement? I hadn't made any formal announcements, and the idea that my vague musings had reached his ears caught me off guard. "I wasn't aware I'd officially said anything about retiring," I replied, my tone laced with a mix of amusement and suspicion. Dr. Wilson's smile was warm, the lines around his eyes deepening like familiar creases in a well-worn book. "The hospital grapevine is relentless," he said with a chuckle. "You mentioned it Arizona to Nancy in radiology, and by noon half the staff was buzzing about your imminent departure." I sighed, shaking my head. Hospitals were worse than small towns when it came to gossip. Every whispered possibility spread like wildfire. "I've been exploring options," I admitted, choosing my words carefully. "Arizona's one of them, but nothing's set in stone." He nodded, his expression shifting to something more serious as he leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Eleanor, I'll cut to the chase. We don't want to lose you. The pediatric department's patient satisfaction scores are consistently highest for the families you work with. Your knowledge, your presence, it's irreplaceable." His words hit me like a sudden gust of wind, stirring a mix of pride and surprise. I'd always received positive evaluations, but the hospital administration rarely singled out individuals with such direct praise. For a moment, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years, my contributions laid bare in a way that made my chest tighten with unexpected emotion. "That's kind of you to," I managed, my voice softer than I intended. "But after 27 years, I've been wondering if it's time for new voices, new energy." Dr. Wilson didn't miss a beat. "Or maybe it's time your experience is truly valued." He slid a folder across the table, its edges crisp and official. "The board and I have been discussing a new role for you, pediatric nursing coordinator and family liaison. Fewer hours on the floor, more focus on mentoring younger staff and enhancing our family support programs." I opened the folder, my breath catching at the salary figure scrawled inside. It was nearly double my current pay, a number that felt almost surreal after years of modest raises. "This is generous," I said, my tone cautious as I tried to process the implications. "But it's not exactly within the usual pay scale for nursing staff, is it?" Dr. Wilson shrugged, a hint of pragmatism in his eyes. "It's a specialized role tailored to your unique skills. Frankly, it's less than what it would cost us to replace you and train someone new, especially considering the impact on patient care during that transition." I studied him, searching for the subtext. "Why now?" I asked, my voice steady but probing. "I've been here for decades without an offer like this." He had the decency to look slightly abashed, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. "Sometimes it takes the threat of losing something valuable to realize its worth," he admitted. "And if I'm being honest, the healthcare landscape is shifting. Patient experience metrics now directly tie to funding. Your ability to connect with families isn't just a strength, it's a financial asset." His candor was refreshing, even if it stung a little to hear my value framed in such practical terms. I nodded, acknowledging the reality. "And the reduced floor hours?" I asked, sensing there was more to the offer. "We know the physical demands of the pro can wear on you after so long," he said. This role leverages your expertise in a way that's sustainable for the long haul. I closed the folder, my mind a whirlwind of possibilities. The offer was tempting: recognition, a lighter workload, a salary that could ease the financial strain I'd carried for years. But beneath the allure, a quiet unease stirred. It felt oddly parallel to my personal life, where my values seemed to be acknowledged only when I started pulling away. "I'll need time to think it over," I said, meeting his gaze. "Of course," he replied, his tone softening. "Take a couple of weeks, but Eleanor—" He hesitated, then spoke with a rare personal warmth. "I've watched you put everyone else first for as long as I've known you. Maybe it's time to think about what's best for you." As I left the room, clutching to the folder, his words lingered, stirring a restlessness I couldn't quite name. The hospital's offer was a lifeline, a validation of my decades of service, but it also felt like a belated attempt to keep me tethered to a role I'd long outgrown. Back at the nurse's station, my phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte, my sister, her words playful yet pointed. "Any progress on those Arizona plans? Found a pottery studio near me with senior discounts on classes. Just saying." I smiled, warmth spreading through me at her gentle nudge. Charlotte knew me too well, dangling the promise of pottery, a passion I'd abandoned years ago when life's demands buried my dreams under duty. In college, I'd taken a ceramics class and discovered a natural talent for shaping clay, feeling it yield under my hands. Thomas, my late husband, had surprised me with a small pottery wheel for our 5th anniversary, his eyes bright with hope that I'd carve out time for myself. But work, raising Lisa, in the grind of life, had pushed it to the basement, where it sat unused until I sold it during a lean month. Charlotte's text was a reminder of the life I could still reclaim, a life where I wasn't just a nurse, a mother, or a grandmother, but Eleanor, the woman who once dreamed of creating beauty from raw earth. By the end of my shift, the weight of the hospital's offer pressed heavily on my mind. Driving home, I navigated the familiar streets, only to find the parking lot at my apartment complex overflowing, forcing me to park on the street. As I approached my building, I spotted a familiar SUV in the visitor spot. Daniel's. My son-in-law sat on the steps outside my door, a large portfolio case beside him, his posture tense in a way that was unlike his usual calm confidence. "Daniel," I greeted, my surprise evident. "I wasn't expecting you." He stood, his expression a mix of nerves and determination. "I hope it's okay I stopped out by unannounced. There's something I wanted to show you in person." Curiosity piqued, I unlocked the door and invited him in, wondering what could unsettle him so. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea?" I offered, trying to ease the tension. "Water's fine, thanks," he said, carefully placing the portfolio on my coffee table. When I returned with 2 glasses, he'd opened the case to reveal architectural renderings, their lines precise and inviting. "What's this?" I asked, settling beside him. Daniel took a deep breath as if steeling himself. "After our talk about the mortgage, I've been thinking a lot. About family, contributions, legacy." He gestured to the drawings. "These are plans for an in-law suite in our basement. Separate entrance, full kitchenette, accessible bathroom, designed for comfort and independence." I stared at the plans, my mind struggling to process the implications. The suite was beautiful, thoughtfully designed, with a small patio for a garden or whatever I might want. It was a space that promised both connection and autonomy. "It's your space," Daniel continued, his words rushing out. "No obligations, no expectations. You could be as involved or private as you want." His earnestness was palpable, but a flicker of doubt crept in. The timing felt too convenient, coming so soon after I'd set boundaries with him and Lisa about their reliance on my financial support. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Daniel, what exactly are you proposing?" He blinked, caught off guard by my tone. "We thought you might consider living with us instead of moving to Arizona. On your terms, of course, no mortgage payments, no financial strings. This is our investment in keeping you close." I studied him, searching for ulterior motives. "And this sudden desire to have me nearby, does it have anything to do with childcare or other practical help?" Daniel's cheeks flushed slightly. "I won't lie, having you close would make things easier with the kids. But Eleanor, This isn't about exploiting you. It's about families supporting each other, not just you carrying us. I stood and walked to the window, needing space to untangle my thoughts. The offer was tempting, being near my grandchildren, whom I adored, in a space far more comfortable than my cramped apartment. But the timing gnawed at me, echoing the hospital's offer. Recognition only when departure loomed. "What does Lisa think of this?" I asked, turning to face him. His hesitation was answer enough. "She doesn't know, does she?" I realized, my voice softening. "This is your idea, not hers." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair in a familiar gesture of frustration. "She knows I'm exploring options, but she hasn't seen the plans. I wanted to gauge your interest first, to avoid getting her hopes up or to avoid her objecting." I raised an eyebrow. "Or you thought it'd be easier to present us both with a done deal?" He looked sheepish but didn't deny it. "Lisa's complicated when it comes to you," he admitted. "She admires you, but she also feels like she's living in your shadow, your work ethic, your sacrifices. It's a standard she thinks she can't meet." His words hit me like a revelation. I'd never considered that my choices, my relentless dedication, might have cast a shadow over my daughter. "I never meant to create that pressure," I said quietly. "Of course not," Daniel agreed. "But kids build their own stories about their parents, just like parents do about their kids. Sometimes those stories need rewriting." I returned to the sofa, my eyes lingering on the plans. "Daniel, I appreciate the effort, truly, but I can't consider moving in without Lisa's full support. Anything less would breed resentment." He nodded, his expression earnest. "I understand. Will you at least keep it as an option? Let me talk to Lisa, show her the plans." "I can do that," I conceded, but I needed him to understand something deeper. My decision about where to live isn't just about family or comfort. It's about writing a new chapter for myself, one where I'm the main character, not just a supporting role in someone else's story. Daniel's eyes widened with a new respect. "I never thought of it that way. You've always seemed so content in that role." "Not content," I corrected gently. "Resigned. There's a difference." As he gathered the portfolio to leave, he paused. "Lisa and I have been sorting out our finances. We figured out how to manage the mortgage on our own. It's tight, but doable with some changes. Canceled my country club membership. Lisa's selling her second car. We're keeping the kids in private school, but cutting back on extras." I nodded, recognizing the effort, even if it seemed modest compared to the sacrifices I'd made over the years. "I'm glad to hear that," I said sincerely. "One more thing," he added at the door. "Lisa mentioned you might have a job offer from the hospital." I smiled wryly. News traveled fast. "Dr. Wilson proposed something today. I'm still processing." Daniel's expression softened. "Whatever you decide, Arizona, the hospital, something else, I hope you'll stay a part of our lives. The kids need you, and despite everything, Lisa does too." After he left, I sat with the competing visions of my future. The hospital's offer of professional recognition, Daniel's vision of family closeness, Charlotte's promise of Arizona's freedom. Each path pulled at a different part of me, stirring a longing for purpose, connection, and a life I could claim as my own. My thoughts were interrupted by a call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, Ms. Walsh. This is Bridget Miller from Sunset Realty, calling about the property you inquired about on Lakeside Drive." I frowned, confused. "I'm sorry, I haven't inquired about any properties." A pause, then, "My apologies, I got your name from Patricia Harrington. She said you might be interested in a rental in our senior living community." My grip tightened on the phone. Patricia, Daniel's mother, was shopping for retirement homes for me without my consent. "Miss Miller, I'm not in the market for senior housing," I said firmly. "In the future, I'd prefer to handle my own inquiries." Hanging up, I fumed. The audacity of her interference was staggering, and I couldn't help but wonder if Daniel and Lisa knew about it. Was the in-law suite a genuine offer, or a softer alternative to Patricia's plan? Needing clarity, I impulsively booked a flight to Arizona for the following weekend. A visit with Charlotte might help me sort through the noise. The morning of my departure, Lisa texted, "Mom, heard you're going to Arizona. We need to talk before you decide anything. Please call." I replied, "Taking a short trip to visit Charlotte, not making permanent decisions yet." We'll talk when I return. Her response was immediate. At least let us drive you to the airport. I considered refusing but decided against it. That would be nice. Flight leaves at 11:20. Lisa and the kids arrived on time. A minor miracle given their usual lax punctuality. Adam loaded my suitcase while Sophia peppered me with questions about Arizona. Cowboys, horses, visits. Lisa gently reined her in. Grandma's just visiting, Sophia. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The drive was comfortingly normal, filled with Adam's chess tournament tales and Sophia's middle school drama. Lisa navigated traffic with her usual intensity, and nothing suggested she knew about Patricia's meddling. At the terminal, Lisa surprised me by hopping out to help with my bag. As the kids called their goodbyes, she hesitated, then pulled me into a quick hug. Mom, I know things have been strained lately, but whatever you decide, I want you to be happy. Really. Her sincerity disarmed me. Thank you, Lisa. That means a lot. She hesitated, then added, Daniel showed me the in-law suite plans. It was my idea originally. I just didn't know how to bring it up without it feeling like we were using you again. I blinked, caught off guard. You suggested it? She nodded, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. After our talk about boundaries, I started thinking about what a healthier relationship could look like. One where we're family, close but not entangled. I searched her face for manipulation, but found only honesty. We'll talk more when I get back, I promised. On the flight to Arizona, I reflected on the whirlwind of offers and expectations. Everyone had a vision for my future, their concern both touching and overwhelming. Charlotte greeted me at the Phoenix airport, her silver hair glinting in the desert sun, her smile as warm as the air. Well, look at you, finally visiting your favorite sister, she teased, pulling me into a hug. You're my only sister, I laughed, already feeling lighter. Her condo in Scottsdale was a vibrant reflection of her, airy, colorful, filled with art and plants, a testament to a life lived on her terms. As I stepped inside, I felt a spark of possibility, a glimpse of the Eleanor I could still become. Under the sprawling shade of an ancient mesquite tree, its gnarled branches stretching like protective arms, Charlotte and I settled onto the patio with frosty margaritas in hand. The desert air hummed with life. Hummingbirds zipped between vibrant blooms, their wings a soft blur against the stark beauty of the Arizona landscape. The heat was relentless, but the cool glass in my palm and the easy rhythm of Charlotte's voice grounded me. She'd insisted on dragging me out here the moment I arrived, her eyes sparkling with that familiar mix of mischief and wisdom. Doctor's orders, she'd teased, though I'd shot back, half laughing, that a retired art teacher hardly qualified as a doctor. Teacher's orders, then, she countered with a grin, her tone carrying the weight of someone who'd spent decades shaping young minds. Far more authoritative, don't you think? As we sipped our drinks, the tart lime cutting through the desert's dry heat, I poured out the tangled mess of choices cluttering my mind. There was the hospital's lucrative job offer, a chance to stay in the familiar rhythm of my nursing career, its demands both exhausting and comforting in their predictability. Then there was Lisa and Daniel's proposal, a custom-designed in-law suite in their home, a space crafted with care but heavy with the unspoken expectation of family proximity. Charlotte's offer, of course, loomed largest in that moment, the chance to move here, to this sun-drenched paradise where she thrived, free from the weight of past responsibilities. And then there was Patricia, my well-meaning but overbearing sister-in-law, who'd secretly contacted a retirement village on my behalf, an act that stung more for its presumption than its intent. Charlotte listened, her face a canvas of patience, her occasional nods encouraging me to keep going. When I finished, she leaned back, her glass sweating in the heat, and summarized it with her usual flair. So let's see if I've got this right. You've got a high-paying gig at the hospital, tempting but soul-draining. Lisa and Daniel are offering you a cozy nook in their world. Custom-built, but maybe a little too close for comfort. Then there's the standing invitation to join your dazzlingly youthful sister, me, in this desert Eden. She swept her arm toward the horizon where cacti stood like silent sentinels against the endless sky. Oh, and Patricia's sneaky retirement village scheme, which we're dismissing outright, though it does add a delicious twist of family drama. I couldn't help but smile at her theatrical recap, the knot in my chest loosening just a fraction. That's the gist of it, I said, swirling the ice in my glass. But then her voice softened, cutting through the playful banter like a knife through silk. Ellie, what do you want? She asked, her eyes locking onto mine, with an intensity that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. Not what's practical or what would make everyone else happy. What do you want? The question hit like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading through memories of a life spent prioritizing others. Patience, children, grandchildren, even Patricia's relentless need for control. I stared into my half-empty glass, the liquid catching the sunlight like a prism. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been so focused on what everyone else needs that I'm not sure I even know how to want something for myself anymore. And the confession felt raw, like peeling back a bandage to reveal a wound I'd ignored for too long. Charlotte reached across the table, her hand warm and steady as it closed over mine. Then that's where we start, Ellie. Before you decide where to live or what job to take, you need to find the Eleanor who's been buried under all that duty and sacrifice. Her eyes gleamed with a spark of conspiracy. And I might just have a few ideas. What followed was a whirlwind Charlotte dubbed Operation Eleanor Rediscovery, a 4-day odyssey that felt like stepping into a forgotten version of myself. It began in her pottery studio, where the air smelled of damp earth and possibility. My hands, hesitant at first, sank into the cool clay, rediscovering the wheel's meditative spin. Each rotation pulled me deeper into a rhythm I hadn't felt since my 20s, when I dreamed of art before nursing became my life. The clay yielded under my fingers, not perfect but alive, and with each wobble I felt a flicker of joy, tentative like a flame catching in the wind. We hiked the desert at dawn, the sand glowing gold as the sun crested the horizon, painting the cacti in hues so vivid they seemed to pulse. I breathed in the vastness, my chest expanding with something that felt dangerously like freedom. One evening we stumbled into an outdoor concert, the music vibrant and unapologetic. I surprised myself by joining the crowd, my body swaying to the beat, laughter bubbling up as I danced in public for the first time in decades. Each night we returned to the patio, the desert sky a tapestry of stars above us. We talked for hours, unearthing childhood memories, summers spent chasing fireflies, secrets whispered in the dark. We laughed until our sides ached, tears streaming as we rediscovered the bond that life's demands had sometimes pushed aside. With every story, I felt pieces of myself clicking back into place, like a mosaic slowly taking shape. On my final night, Charlotte handed me a small, wrapped package, her smile cryptic. "Open it," she urged. Inside was a turquoise leather journal, its cover smooth and warm to the touch. "Turn to the first page," she said. There, in her elegant, looping handwriting, was a single question. What would Eleanor do if she weren't afraid? My breath caught, the words sinking into me like a challenge and a lifeline all at once. "Your homework," she explained, her voice gentle but firm. "Before you decide anything, fill this journal. 1 page for each option. Hospital, Lisa's place, here with me, whatever else comes up. Be brutally honest about what scares you and what sets your heart on fire." I clutched the journal to my chest, overwhelmed by her insight, by the way she'd seen through the layers I'd built around myself. "Thank you, Char," I whispered, my voice thick, "for everything." She pulled me into a hug, her warmth anchoring me. "You're welcome, Ellie. And remember, putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's like those oxygen masks on planes. You can't help anyone else if you're gasping for air." The flight home was quiet, the hum of the plane a backdrop to my thoughts as I opened the journal and began to write. I started with Arizona, pouring out the allure of Charlotte's companionship, the desert's stark beauty, the chance to shed old patterns like a snake shedding its skin. But I also faced my fears, the ache of being so far from my grandchildren, the daunting prospect of starting over at my age, the nagging worry that moving might feel like running away rather than choosing. Page after page filled with reflections, each word more honest than the lists I'd made in the past, which had always been about logic over longing. By the time the plane touched down, I felt lighter, as if I'd begun to untangle the threads of my own desires. At the airport, I stepped into the arrivals area expecting Lisa's familiar face, but instead I was greeted by a small crowd. Lisa, Adam, and Sophia, their handmade sign proclaiming, "Welcome home, Grandma," in bright, uneven letters. Their enthusiasm wrapped around me like a warm blanket, though I couldn't shake a flicker of curiosity about this unexpected welcome committee. "How was Arizona?" Lisa asked as we walked to the car, her tone light but searching. "As wonderful as Charlotte promised," I said, the truth of it settling in my bones. It gave me space to breathe, to see things clearly. Sophia tugged at my sleeve, her eyes wide with worry. "Are you moving there? Please say no." Lisa's voice was gentle but firm. "Sophia, that's Grandma's decision." I squeezed Sophia's hand, her small fingers grounding me. "I'm still thinking, sweetheart. But I promise, you and Adam are a big part of what matters to me." In the parking garage, Lisa paused before opening the trunk, her expression shifting to something heavier. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you. While you were gone, Patricia called. She admitted to contacting a retirement community on your behalf." The words landed like a slap, though I'd suspected as much. Lisa's eyes flashed with a rare anger, her voice tight. "I told her she'd crossed a line that wasn't hers to cross. I may have said things the kids shouldn't hear." I blinked, stunned by her ferocity. Lisa had always tiptoed around Patricia, keeping the peace at all costs. "You confronted her?" I asked, incredulous. Lisa busied herself with my suitcase, avoiding my gaze. "Maybe I'm learning some relationships aren't worth bending over backward for, especially when they disrespect you." From the back seat, Adam piped up, his voice solemn. Grandpa William wasn't happy either. We were at their house when Mom called Grandma Patricia. He took the phone and said she was unconscionably presumptuous. I turned to him, eyebrows raised. "He said that?" Adam nodded. "Then he apologized to Mom and said Patricia sometimes forgets money doesn't give her the right to control everyone." The revelation caught me off guard. William, usually so aligned with Patricia, breaking ranks felt like a crack in a once solid wall. Lisa continued as we drove, her voice steadier now. "I just want you to know Daniel and I had nothing to do with that retirement nonsense." "I believe you," I said, and I did. At my apartment, Lisa surprised me again. "Can we come up for a bit? I have something to show you." Upstairs, while Adam and Sophia poked around with unusual curiosity, Lisa pulled a folder from her purse, its weight mirroring the one Daniel had shown me with the in-law suite plans. "What's this?" I asked, a thread of weariness in my voice. "Something different," she said, her eyes soft. Inside were listings for small houses and garden apartments near their home, independent spaces that balance proximity with autonomy. "Daniel's suite idea is still an option," she explained, "but I thought you might want your own place nearby, close enough for visits, but with your own space." I leafed through the listings, each one thoughtfully chosen: a garden for my love of plants, big windows for natural light, a dining area for hosting. My throat tightened. "Lisa, I don't know what to say." She sat beside me, her voice quiet. "You don't have to say anything now. These are just possibilities. Whatever you choose, Arizona, the hospital, near us, something else, I want you to know we'll respect it, even if it means seeing you less." Her hesitation was brief but heavy. "Though the kids would miss you, so would I." Adam appeared bouncing with excitement. "Can we show her now?" Lisa glanced at her watch. "Yes, but we need to hurry." Confused but curious, I let them whisk me back to the car. We drove to an unfamiliar part of the city, pulling up to a sleek building with a sign, New Horizons Community Center. Inside, Lisa led me down a corridor, her smile cryptic. "You'll see," she said as Adam pushed open a set of double doors. The room beyond was alive with people, hospital colleagues, neighbors, even parents of former patients. Tables showcased crafts, walls displayed paintings, and a pottery wheel stood ready for a demonstration. A banner stretched across the back. Eleanor Walsh Community Arts Initiative. Voices called out, "Surprise!" And I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the familiar faces. Dr. Wilson stepped forward, his smile warm. "Eleanor, when you mentioned pottery during our talk about the new position, It sparked an idea. The hospital wants to expand community outreach, and art therapy is a proven benefit for pediatric patients and families. A woman introduced herself as Diane, the center's director. We need someone to lead an intergenerational arts program, someone with healthcare experience, artistic talent, and a knack for connecting with people. I turned to Lisa, her expression unreadable. You knew about this? She nodded. Dr. Wilson called while you were in Arizona, asking about your pottery days. I remembered how you loved it, how you always said you'd get back to it. Dr. Wilson added, we thought you could split your time between the hospital and this program, with full training in art therapy. An older man, Jim, chimed in, gesturing to a display of beginners' ceramic bowls. I had a heart attack last year. Making these was better than any pill. Others shared stories. Children I'd nursed, parents I'd comforted, volunteers who'd found purpose through art. My mind spun, grappling with the idea of a role that wove my nursing past with a creative future. I'm no artist, I protested. I haven't touched clay in years. Jim laughed. Neither had we, but it's not about perfection. It's about what it does for you. Then I saw her, Charlotte, standing at the back, her grin unmistakable. Charlotte? I gasped. You were in Arizona yesterday. She shrugged, eyes twinkling. Red-eye flight. Couldn't miss this, could I? She admitted to coordinating from afar, but the idea had come from Lisa and my colleagues. Overwhelmed, I found myself at the pottery wheel, the clay cool and familiar under my fingers. As I shaped it, the room faded, and I felt a quiet joy in the imperfect bowl taking form. Lisa's gaze met mine, her pride unguarded, and something shifted, a new balance in our relationship, deeper than words. Later, Dr. Wilson asked, what do you think? Or interested? I looked at Charlotte laughing with colleagues, Sophia teaching a child to pinch clay, Lisa discussing logistics with Diane. I think, I said slowly, this might be what I've been searching for without knowing it. That night, I returned to the journal, adding pages for this new possibility, a role blending care and creativity. Each option before me reflected a part of who I was, caregiver, artist, sister, grandmother. Maybe the answer wasn't choosing one, but weaving them together into a life that was mine. The next morning, I made calls, first to Charlotte, then Dr. Wilson, then Lisa. By noon, I had a plan, 6 months in the city to train my replacement and launch the art program, 3 months in Arizona with Charlotte to explore similar work, and 3 flexible months for travel or family. I'd find a garden apartment near Lisa, not out of fear, but because I craved a space that was mine. Over coffee, I shared the plan with Lisa. Her eyes lit up. Mom, that's perfect. It's like you're building a life that's all you. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was. The idea of a portfolio life resonated deeply with me, a vibrant tapestry woven from the threads of my varied passions and experiences. Why should I, at this stage of my journey, be confined to a single path? The phrase danced in my mind, sparking a vision of a life as multifaceted as the pottery I crafted. Each piece unique, each moment rich with possibility. I wanted a life that mirrored the complexity of my soul, one that embraced art, connection, solitude, and growth without forcing me to choose between them. The realization felt like sunlight breaking through a calm gray dawn, illuminating a future I could shape on my own terms. Across the table, Lisa's hand found mine, her touch warm and grounding. Her eyes, usually guarded, shimmered with admiration. You know what astonishes me? She said softly, her voice carrying a weight of sincerity. Most people would have let the pain of being left out of Thanksgiving fester into bitterness or resentment. But you've taken that hurt and transformed it into something beautiful, something inspiring. You've used it to fuel a new beginning. Her words struck a chord deep within me, stirring a quiet pride. I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the connection between us strengthen. Sometimes, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside, the darkest moments are just doorways to brighter ones. It's about finding the courage to step through. Lisa's expression softened, a flicker of guilt passing over her face. I'm still sorry about that day, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just about you. It was my own insecurities, feeling like I could never live up to Patricia's vision of the perfect family. Her vulnerability caught me off guard, peeling back layers of our complicated history. I met her gaze, my heart softening. There's no such thing as a perfect family, Lisa. Only real ones, with all their flaws and tangled bonds. And I wouldn't trade our messy, beautiful family for any polished illusion. We sat in companionable silence, finishing our coffee, the clink of cups a gentle rhythm to our thoughts. Then Lisa hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug before she spoke. Would you still come for dinner this weekend? The kids miss you, especially your cranberry sauce. Her invitation was an olive branch, extended with a warmth that felt like a bridge over the chasm that had grown between us. I smiled, my heart lifting. I'd love to. Should I bring enough for everyone, or just the ones who'll appreciate it? Her laughter rang out, bright and genuine, dissolving the last traces of tension. Bring plenty, she said, her eyes twinkling. I have a feeling even Patricia might come around to it this year. Walking home, the crisp air filled my lungs, and I felt lighter than I had in years. The future stretched before me, not a flawless horizon, but a canvas of my own making, full of challenges, yes, but also brimming with possibility. It was a life I was choosing deliberately, shaped by my desires rather than the expectations of others. That evening, I sat with Charlotte's journal, its pages a testament to my evolving journey. On the final page, I answered her question. What would Eleanor do if she weren't afraid? My pen moved with certainty. She would live a life as vibrant and varied as the bowl she creates, a life with room for art and healing, for quiet moments alone and joyful gatherings with family, for giving generously and receiving graciously, a life where boundaries are firm but doors remain open, a life worthy of every year that came before and everyone still to come. 6 months into this new chapter, I stood in the community center, watching my advanced pottery students prepare for our first exhibition. The room hummed with a creative energy, a symphony of clinking tools and soft murmurs as 8 participants, ranging from teenagers to septuagenarians, poured their hearts into their work. Each piece told a story of healing, of transforming pain into beauty. Marcus, a 17-year-old cancer survivor with a flair for bold, dramatic glazes, was arranging his collection of cosmic-inspired mugs. The vibrant swirls of blue, purple, and gold seemed to capture the vastness of the universe in miniature, each mug a testament to his resilience. Miss Eleanor, bam, he called, his voice bright with brusque confidence. Should I group these by color or sahibim? I walked over, my eyes tracing the intricate patterns on his mugs. What story are you telling with these? I asked, knowing the question would prompt him to dig deeper. He paused, his brow furrowing in thought. I guess it's about how something broken can become something beautiful. Each mug has a crack or flaw I filled with gold, like that Japanese technique you taught us, kintsugi. I nodded, a swell of pride rising in my chest. Then lead with the gold repairs. Let that message shine. As he rearranged his display, I marveled at his transformation. When we'd started, Marcus had been withdrawn, his shoulders hunched as if bracing for judgment. Now he stood tall, discussing his artistic choices with ease and mentoring younger students with a quiet confidence that warmed my heart. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Lisa, accompanied by a photo of Sophia grinning beside her science project, a clay model of the solar system. The caption read, "First prize." She says her inspiration came from Grandma's pottery lessons and NASA videos. Can you come see it? My fingers flew across the screen, typing a quick reply. So proud of her. I'll stop by after the exhibition setup around 6. Well, and at 6 o'clock, I pulled into Lisa and Daniel's driveway, where Sophia was waiting on the front steps, practically vibrating with excitement. Grandma, you have to see my project, she exclaimed, grabbing my hand and pulling me inside. Her solar system display dominated the dining room table, each planet meticulously crafted with accurate size ratios and surface details that reflected careful research. Mars had a textured, sandy finish, while Jupiter's layers of colored clay mimicked the swirling storms of its atmosphere. This is extraordinary, Sophia, I said, genuinely awestruck. You've captured the essence of each planet so beautifully. She beamed, her pride radiating. The judges said the same thing. They said most kids just paint styrofoam balls, but mine showed a real understanding of planetary formation and composition. She pronounced the scientific terms with care, clearly relishing the chance to wield adult language. Lisa appeared in the doorway, her smile warm. She worked on it for weeks, wouldn't let anyone help except for the technical details. Sophia shook her head. That's not true. Grandma helped, not directly, but everything she taught me about clay made this possible. Her words warmed me to my core. In the past, I might have brushed off the credit, deflecting out of habit, but now I accepted it with grace. I'm honored to have played a part in your success, I told her, my voice steady. Artists inspire each other. That's how creativity grows. Lisa caught my eye over Sophia's head, her expression softening with a quiet understanding that felt new, precious. Dinner's ready, Lisa said. It's nothing fancy, just pasta, but we'd love for you to stay. There was no hidden agenda in her invitation, only a genuine desire for my company. How different this was from the days when my presence was valued for what I could provide rather than who I was. I'd love to, I replied, my heart full. The meal was simple but warm, spaghetti with garlic bread, a crisp green salad, and sparkling cider for toasting Sophia's victory. Adam shared animated stories from his debate team, while Daniel asked thoughtful questions about the upcoming exhibition. Will any of your pieces be included? He asked. I nodded. A few. Diane, the program director, believes instructors should participate alongside students. It builds trust through shared vulnerability. Lisa looked up, her fork pausing midair. That's what makes your program special. You're not just teaching techniques, you're showing people how to create despite their imperfections. Her insight caught me off guard. That's exactly it, I said, surprised. How did you know? She smiled, a touch shyly. I may have slipped into one of your sessions last month, anonymously sitting in the back. You were different there, Mom. So confident, so joyful. I realized I've rarely seen you like that. Her words hit me like a revelation. For so long, our relationship had been shaped by duty and sacrifice, rarely by joy. I am happy there, I admitted. There's something powerful about helping people discover creativity they didn't know they had. Sophia piped up, her eyes bright. Like you did with me and my science project. I smiled at her. Exactly like that. After dinner, as Lisa and the kids cleared the table, Daniel pulled me aside, his expression serious. Eleanor, there's something I've been meaning to discuss. It's about the house. My guard went up, old instincts resurfacing despite the warmth of the evening. What about it? I asked cautiously. My trust fund matures next month, as you know, he said. Lisa and I have made a decision. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for the exact amount I'd contributed to their mortgage over the years, plus interest. Daniel, this isn't necessary, I began, but he raised a hand. It is necessary, not legally, but morally. You invested in our home at great personal cost. This is about returning what was always yours. I stared at the check, torn between gratitude and unease. The money represented security, new possibilities, travel, classes, maybe even a small studio. But accepting it felt like unraveling the gift I'd intended my contributions to be. Reading my hesitation, Daniel softened. This isn't about erasing your generosity. It's about starting fresh, on equal footing. I asked, what does Lisa say? He smiled. It was her idea. She's determined to close the ledger, as she puts it. I folded the check carefully, tucking it back into the envelope. I'll think about it, I promised. As I prepared to leave, Lisa walked me to my car, the porch light casting a soft glow over her face. Daniel told you about the check, she said. I nodded. It's generous, but... She cut me off, her voice firm. It's not a gesture, Mom, it's a correction. I've been thinking a lot about patterns and legacies, about what you taught me about giving and what I'm teaching my kids about receiving. You showed me that love means sacrifice, but I've realized I also need to model gratitude, balance, acknowledging debts when relationships become uneven. Her words echoed my own recent realizations, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. "When did you get so wise?" I asked softly. She smiled, her eyes warm. "I had a good teacher. Even when I wasn't paying attention, I was learning." Driving home to my cozy garden apartment, where herbs and flowers thrived on my small patio, I thought about the check in my purse. It wasn't just money, it was a symbol of a new dynamic, an acknowledgement of my worth beyond what I could give. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made my decision. The money wouldn't go to practical needs or safe investments. It would fund dreams I'd shelved for decades, travel to distant lands, master classes with renowned ceramicists, a studio where I could create on a larger scale. The choice felt like a reclamation of joy, a redefinition of responsibility that included my own happiness. The community center exhibition opened the following weekend to unexpected success. Local media covered the event, spotlighting the therapeutic power of our program and featuring interviews with participants like Marcus, whose cosmic mugs sold out in the first hour. A local gallery owner offered him an apprenticeship, a testament to his growth. My own pieces, a series of nesting bowls in shades of blue, each inscribed with a phrase about renewal, drew thoughtful attention. Dr. Wilson, the hospital director, purchased the set for the pediatric waiting area, saying, "These capture the sense of safety and transition we want to create there." As the exhibition wound down, Diane pulled me aside, her eyes bright with excitement. "We've had 3 grant inquiries based on today's coverage, and the hospital board approved funding for a dedicated art therapy space." I smiled, thrilled at the program's growth. Then she hesitated, her tone shifting. "There's more, Eleanor. The Collins Foundation wants to replicate our program at sister facilities across several states. They're looking for someone to develop a training curriculum and oversee implementation. They asked for you by name after their director attended your workshop." The scope of the opportunity took my breath away. At 63, I hadn't imagined such a role for myself. "I'm not sure I'm qualified," I admitted. "I'm not a trained art therapist, just a nurse who loves pottery." Diane laughed. "That's exactly why they want you. Your nursing background and artistic sensibility create a unique healing environment." I told her I'd need time to consider it, my mind racing with thoughts of my current commitments and plans for Arizona with Charlotte. That night, I called Charlotte to share the news. "So you're being headhunted as a pottery guru for a national healing arts initiative?" she teased. I laughed. "Something like that." Her voice softened. "Ellie, this is extraordinary. 6 months ago, you were exhausted, carrying someone else's burdens. Now you're being asked to write the book on innovative therapy. That's not just growth, it's a revolution." Her words steadied me, but doubts lingered. "What about Arizona? I was looking forward to our time there." Her response was warm, unwavering. "Arizona isn't going anywhere, and neither am I. Some opportunities only come once, Ellie. This sounds like one of them." The next morning, I walked through my favorite park, its winding paths and small lake a haven for reflection. As I rounded the water, I spotted Patricia, Daniel's mother, feeding breadcrumbs to a flock of ducks. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, followed by something softer, less guarded. For a moment, I considered turning back. Our relationship had improved since the retirement home incident, but it remained polite rather than warm, shadowed by years of subtle tensions. Yet something urged me forward. Perhaps the confidence of knowing I no longer needed her approval. Perhaps a curiosity about what lay beneath her guarded exterior. "Eleanor," she greeted as I approached, her tone neutral but not unkind. I nodded, pausing beside the bench. "Didn't expect to see you here," I said lightly, testing the waters. She offered a small smile, tossing another handful of crumbs to the ducks. "I come here to think. It's peaceful." We stood in silence for a moment, the quacking ducks filling the space between us. Then she spoke, her voice quieter. "I saw the article about your exhibition. It's impressive what you're doing." Her words surprised me, carrying a sincerity I hadn't expected. "Thank you," I said, studying her face. "It's been a journey." She nodded, her gaze fixed on the water. "I owe you an apology, Eleanor. For Thanksgiving, for how I've treated you over the years. I've always admired your strength, but it intimidated me. I didn't know how to fit into your world, so I pushed you away." Her confession hung in the air, raw and unguarded. I took a breath, letting her words settle. We've both made mistakes, I said gently. But we're here now. Maybe that's enough. She looked at me then, her eyes softer than I had ever seen. I'd like to see your work sometime, if you'd allow it. I smiled, a small bridge forming where a wall once stood. I'd like that. As I walked away, the weight of years seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet hope. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, chosen, shaped, and filled with possibility. And for the first time, I felt ready to embrace every facet of it, from the cracks to the golden repairs. The notion of a portfolio life resonated deeply within me, a vibrant tapestry woven from myriad threads rather than a single unyielding strand. Why at this stage of my journey should I be confined to one path? Why not craft an existence as rich and multifaceted as the woman I've become? The idea filled me with a quiet thrill, a sense of possibility that danced in my chest like sunlight on water. I wanted a life that embraced my complexities, my love for art, my need for solitude, my devotion to family, and my hunger for new horizons. A life that didn't demand I choose, but allowed me to expand. Lisa's hand reached across the cafe table, her touch warm and grounding. Her eyes, usually guarded, held a softness that caught me off guard. You know what strikes me? She said, her voice low with admiration. You've taken this painful moment, being left out of Thanksgiving, and turned it into something radiant. Most people would have been consumed by anger or resentment, but you've used it as a spark for something better. Her words stirred a warmth in me, a validation I hadn't realized I craved. I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the connection bridge a gap I'd long accepted as permanent. Sometimes, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion rising within, the darkest moments are like hidden doorways. If you're brave enough to step through, they lead to places you never imagined. Lisa's gaze dropped, her fingers tightening slightly around mine. I'm still sorry about that day, she murmured, her voice thick with regret. It wasn't just thoughtlessness. It was my own insecurity, my fear that I'd never live up to Patricia's vision of the perfect family. Her vulnerability hung in the air, fragile and raw. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. There's no such thing as a perfect family, Lisa. Only real ones, with all their flaws and tangles. And I wouldn't trade our beautifully imperfect family for anyone's polished fantasy. As we sipped the last of our coffee, a comfortable silence settled between us, the kind that spoke of healing. Then Lisa hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup before she spoke. Would you still come to dinner this weekend? The kids keep asking for your cranberry sauce. Her invitation was tentative, an olive branch extended with hope. A smile spread across my face, warm and genuine. I'd love to, I replied, my heart lifting. Should I bring enough for everyone, or just the ones who will appreciate it? Lisa's laugh broke the tension, a bright, authentic sound that seemed to mend something between us. Bring plenty, she said, her eyes sparkling. I have a feeling even Patricia might come around to it this year. When walking home that evening, the autumn air crisp against my skin, I felt a lightness I hadn't known in years. The future wasn't a straight line or a predictable path. It was a vast, open canvas, full of challenges, but also brimming with possibility. It was mine to shape, guided not by others' expectations, but by my own desires. For the first time, I felt truly free. That night, I sat at my desk, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating Charlotte's journal. Its pages had become a sanctuary, a place where I poured my fears, dreams, and revelations. On the final page, I answered the question she'd posed months ago. What would Eleanor do if she weren't afraid? My pen moved with certainty. She would live a life as vibrant and varied as the bowls she now crafts, I wrote. A life with room for art and healing, for quiet reflection and family connection, for giving generously and receiving gracefully. A life where boundaries are firm, but doors are left ajar. A life that honors every year behind her and everyone still to come. 6 months later, I stood in the community center, the hum of anticipation filling the air as my advanced pottery students prepared for our first exhibition. The room buzzed with creative energy, a symphony of clinking clay and murmured conversations. 8 students, ranging from a spirited 15-year-old to a thoughtful 72-year-old, worked diligently on pieces that told stories of their personal healing. Each creation was a testament to resilience, a tangible expression of their journeys through pain toward hope. Marcus, a 17-year-old cancer survivor with a flair for bold, dramatic glazes, caught my eye as he meticulously arranged his collection of cosmic-inspired mugs. "Miss Eleanor," he called, his voice carrying a mix of pride and uncertainty. "Should I group these by color or size?" I crossed the room to his display, marveling at the vibrant swirls of blue, purple, and gold that seemed to capture the infinite expanse of the universe in miniature. "What story are you telling with these?" I asked, encouraging him to dig deeper into his intent. He paused, his brow furrowing in thought. "I think it's about how something broken can become something beautiful. Every mug has a crack or flaw, but I filled them with gold, like that Japanese technique you taught us." "Kintsugi," I said, nodding, "then arrange them to highlight the gold repairs first. Let that be the heart of your story." As Marcus adjusted his display, a quiet pride swelled within me. When he'd first joined the program, he'd been withdrawn, his shoulders hunched as if bracing for judgment. Now he stood tall, confidently discussing his artistic choices and mentoring younger students with a generosity that mirrored his growth. His transformation was a reminder of why I poured my heart into this work. It wasn't just about clay, it was about helping people rediscover their own strength. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Lisa, accompanied by a photo of Sophia beaming beside her science project display. The caption read, "Solar System in Clay, How Celestial Bodies Form. First prize." She says her inspiration came from Grandma's pottery lessons and NASA videos. "When can you come see it?" My heart swelled with pride. I typed back quickly. "So proud of her. I'll stop by after the exhibition setup, around 6? At 6 o'clock, I pulled into Lisa and Daniel's driveway, where Sophia was waiting on the front steps, practically vibrating with excitement. "Grandma, you have to see my project," she exclaimed, grabbing my hand and tugging me inside. Her solar system display dominated the dining room table, each planet crafted with astonishing precision. The texture of Mars, achieved by mixing sand into the clay as I taught her, was strikingly realistic. Jupiter's layered bands of color echoed the techniques I'd used in my own bowls. "This is incredible, Sophia," I said, genuinely awed. "You've captured the essence of each planet so vividly." "The judges said the same thing," she replied, her eyes shining. "They said most kids just paint styrofoam balls, but mine showed a real understanding of planetary formation and composition." She pronounced the scientific terms with care, clearly proud of mastering the language of her passion. Lisa appeared in the doorway, her smile warm. "She worked on it for weeks," she said. "Wouldn't let anyone help except for the technical details." "That's not true," Sophia interjected. "Grandma helped, not directly, but everything she taught me about clay made this possible." Her words touched me deeply, a quiet acknowledgement of my influence. In the past, I might have brushed off the credit, deflecting out of habit, but now I accepted it with grace. "I'm honored to have played a part in your success," I told her. "Artists inspire each other. That's how creativity grows." Lisa's gaze met mine over Sophia's head, her expression softening with something like gratitude. "Mom, we're having a small celebration dinner for Sophia's win. Would you stay? It's just pasta, nothing fancy, but we'd love to have you." The invitation felt different from the past, free of obligation or expectation. It was simply a desire to share a moment together. "I'd love to," I said, my voice warm with acceptance. Dinner was delightfully unpretentious. Spaghetti with garlic bread, a crisp green salad, and sparkling cider for toasting Sophia's triumph. Adam entertained us with tales from his debate team, his animated storytelling drawing laughter from the table. Daniel, ever thoughtful, turned to me with genuine curiosity. "Will any of your pieces be in the exhibition here?" "Ulkwan Chwawen. Albashit the he asked. I nodded. "A few," Diane, the program director, believes it's important for the instructor to show alongside the students. Something about shared vulnerability, fostering trust. "She's right," Lisa said, her tone thoughtful. "That's what sets your program apart. You're not just teaching technique, you're showing people how to create despite their imperfections." Her insight caught me by surprise. That's exactly what I'm trying to do, I said, my voice tinged with wonder. How did you know? Lisa smiled, a touch of shyness in her expression. I may have attended one of your sessions last month, anonymously, sitting in the back. I blinked, stunned. Lisa had always been polite about my work, but had never shown interest in participating. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted to see you in your element without changing the dynamic, she admitted. You were different there, Mom. So confident, so joyful. I realized I've rarely seen you like that. Her words struck a chord, stirring memories of decades spent prioritizing duty over delight. My interactions with Lisa had often been shaped by responsibility, by quiet sacrifices made out of love. She'd seldom seen me in moments of pure, unburdened joy. I am happy there, I said softly. There's something powerful about helping people uncover creativity they didn't know they had. Like you did with me in the science project. Sophia chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. I smiled at her. Exactly like that. After dinner, as Lisa and the kids cleared the table, Daniel pulled me aside, his expression serious. Eleanor, there's something I've been meaning to discuss, he began. My guard rose instinctively, old habits of caution surfacing despite the warmth of the evening. What is it? My trust fund matures next month, as you know, he said. I nodded warily. Lisa and I have been talking and we've made a decision. He handed me an envelope. This is for you. Inside was a check for the exact amount I'd contributed to their mortgage over the years, plus interest. My breath caught, a mix of emotions swirling within me. Daniel, this isn't necessary, I started, but he raised a hand to stop me. It is necessary, he said firmly. Not legally, perhaps, but morally. You invested in our home at great personal cost. This is about returning what was always yours. I stared at the check, torn between gratitude and unease. The sum represented security, opportunities I'd never dared dream of. Yet accepting it felt like it might diminish the love behind my original contributions. Sensing my hesitation, Daniel continued, this isn't about erasing the past or denying your generosity. It's about setting things right, starting fresh as equals. What does Lisa say about this? I asked, my voice cautious. It was her idea, he replied. She's been adamant that we need to close the ledger, as she puts it. I folded the check carefully, slipping it back into the envelope. I'll think about it, I said, needing time to process the gesture's weight. As I prepared to leave, Lisa walked me to my car, the soft glow of the porch light casting gentle shadows. Daniel told you about the check, she said, reading my expression. I nodded. It's a generous gesture, but it's not a gesture, Mom, she interrupted, her voice firm but kind. It's a correction. I've been reflecting a lot these past months about patterns, legacies, what I learned from you about giving, and what I'm teaching my kids about receiving. She leaned against my car, her eyes earnest. You showed me that love means sacrifice, and that's a beautiful lesson. But it's not the whole story. I need to model how to receive with gratitude, how to acknowledge debts, how to restore balance when relationships tip too far one way. Or her words echoed truths I'd only recently begun to grasp myself. When did you get so wise? I asked, my voice soft with affection. She smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. I had a good teacher. Even when I wasn't listening, I was learning. Driving home to my garden apartment, a cozy one-bedroom with large windows and a patio bursting with herbs and flowers, I thought about Lisa's words. The check in my purse was more than money. It was a symbol of a new dynamic, an acknowledgement of my worth beyond what I'd given. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd made my decision. The money wouldn't go to practical needs or safe investments. It would fuel the dreams I'd shelved for decades, travel to distant lands, master classes with renowned ceramicists, perhaps even a small studio for larger-scale work. The choice felt like a declaration of freedom, a tearful release of years spent defining responsibility as self-denial. Now I was embracing a new kind of responsibility, to my own joy, to the gifts I'd too long neglected. The community center exhibition opened the following weekend, exceeding all expectations. Local media covered the event, spotlighting the therapeutic power of our program and featuring interviews with students like Marcus, whose cosmic mugs sold out within the first hour. A local gallery owner, impressed by his talent, offered him an apprenticeship, a milestone that filled me with quiet pride. My own pieces, a series of nesting bowls in shades of blue, each inscribed with a phrase about renewal, drew thoughtful attention. Dr. Wilson, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, purchased the set for the newly renovated waiting area. "These embody what we're creating there," he said, "a sense of being held safely through life's transitions." As the exhibition wound down, Diane, the program director, pulled me aside, her excitement palpable. "We've had 3 grant inquiries based on today's coverage," she said, "and the hospital board approved funding for a dedicated art therapy space." "That's fantastic," I agreed, envisioning the possibilities for our growing program. "There's more," she continued, her tone shifting to one of cautious excitement. "The Collins Foundation wants to replicate our model at facilities across several states. They're looking for someone to develop a training curriculum and oversee implementation. They asked for you by name after their director attended your workshop last month." The scope of the opportunity left me breathless. At 60T, I'd never imagined a role of such magnitude. "I'm not sure I'm qualified," I said, doubt creeping in. "I'm not a trained art therapist, just a nurse who loves pottery." Diane laughed, her confidence unwavering. "That's exactly why they want you. Your nursing background and artistic sensibility create something unique, a healing space that doesn't feel clinical. This would involve travel, consulting, maybe even co-authoring a book on our methodology." "I'd need time to think," I said, my mind racing. My current balance, teaching, creating, planning a winter in Arizona with Charlotte, felt precious. "Of course," Diane assured me, "this would be a gradual transition. Take all the time you need." That night, I called Charlotte, my voice trembling with the weight of the news. "So you're being recruited as a pottery guru for a national healing arts initiative?" she teased after I explained. I laughed, her humor easing my nerves. "Something like that." "Ellie, this is extraordinary," she said, her tone turning serious. 6 months ago, you were exhausted, carrying everyone else's burdens. Now you're being asked to write the book on innovative therapy. That's a transformation." "It doesn't feel real," I admitted. "Part of me thinks they'll realize I'm just winging it." "That's imposter syndrome talking," she said firmly. "The real frauds never question themselves." "What about Arizona? I was looking forward to our time there." "I still am," I said, my heart aching at the thought of disrupting our plans. "Honey, Arizona isn't going anywhere," she said warmly. "Neither am I, but some opportunities only come once. This sounds like one of them." Her support steadied me, but I needed clarity. The next morning, I walked to my favorite park, its winding paths and serene lake a haven for reflection. As I rounded the water's edge, I spotted Patricia, Daniel's mother, on a bench tossing breadcrumbs to a flock of ducks. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, followed by something softer, less guarded. For a moment, I considered turning back. Our relationship had thawed slightly since the retirement home misunderstanding. She was polite at family gatherings, and I was courteous in return. But warmth had always eluded us, blocked by years of subtle rivalry. Yet something urged me forward, perhaps the confidence of no longer needing her approval. "Eleanor," she greeted as I approached, her tone neutral but not unkind. "I didn't know you came here." "I walk here often," I said, settling beside her on the bench. "It's a good place to think." She nodded, scattering another handful of crumbs. "I've been doing a lot of the thinking myself lately." Her voice held a weight I hadn't expected, a hint of vulnerability that piqued my curiosity. "About family, about the past, about mistakes." I stayed silent, sensing she needed space to continue. "I owe you an apology," she said at last, her gaze fixed on the ducks. "For Thanksgiving, for making you feel unwelcome. I was trying to protect my idea of family, but all I did was push you away." Her words surprised me, stirring a mix of gratitude and lingering hurt. It was painful, I admitted, but it also woke me up. It made me realize I'd been living for others' expectations too long. In a strange way, it set me free. She turned to me, her eyes searching. "Lisa told me about your pottery program, about the exhibition. She says you're changing lives. I'm helping people find their own strength, I said simply. It's as much a gift to me as it is to them. Patricia smiled, a rare, genuine expression. You've always been stronger than I gave you credit for, Eleanor. I'm glad you're finally claiming it. As we parted ways, I felt a quiet shift. Not a full reconciliation, but a step toward understanding. The encounter lingered in my mind as I walked home, weaving into my thoughts about the Collins Foundation offer. My life, once constrained by duty, was now a portfolio of possibilities. Art, family, travel, impact. Whatever I chose next, it would be deliberate, guided by my own heart. And that, I realized, was the truest freedom of all. A year to the day after I made the bold decision to cancel that mortgage payment, I stood bathed in the warm glow of a sunlit gallery, enveloped by the hum of voices, friends, family, and curious strangers, all gathered to witness the culmination of a journey I never anticipated. My first solo exhibition, a vibrant tapestry of 36 pieces, each one a chapter in my metamorphosis from a life defined by caregiving to one pulsing with creative purpose. The air buzzed with admiration, and my heart swelled with a quiet pride, tempered by the disbelief that this moment was mine. Every work on display was a milestone, a tangible marker of my evolution. There was the first bowl I shaped, its edges hesitant and imperfect, crafted after decades away from the tactile comfort of clay. There were vessels inspired by the sun-bleached deserts of Arizona, where I'd spent soul-reviving months with Charlotte. Collaborative piece, born from the laughter and shared effort of my community center students, glowed with collective spirit. And then the bolder, experimental works, confident, unapologetic, reflected the growing clarity of my vision as my skills deepened. A woman's voice broke through my reverie, soft but awestruck. "I can't believe this is all your work," she murmured, her eyes tracing a series of wall hangings where ceramic shards intertwined with fibers and polished wood. "It's like seeing someone's entire life poured into clay, every twist and turn of their journey." I turned, recognizing Patricia's sister-in-law, a familiar face from fleeting family gatherings over the years. Her words caught me off guard, stirring a warmth in my chest. I smiled, brushing off the enormity of her compliment. "Not my whole life," I said, my voice light but honest. "Just the latest chapter." She nodded, her expression earnest. "It's extraordinary. William and Patricia haven't stopped raving about your work since their anniversary dinner last month. It's no wonder they're such champions of your program." Her casual remark landed like a quiet revelation, stirring a flicker of surprise. Patricia and William, once distant in-laws whose approval I'd never sought, had become vocal advocates, weaving my art into their conversations with pride. The thought was humbling. Our relationship, once marked by polite detachment, had grown into something richer, a mutual respect that wove us more tightly into the fabric of our extended family. It wasn't the effortless closeness I shared with Charlotte, but it was real, grounded in a shared appreciation that felt like a gift I hadn't expected to receive. Across the gallery, I caught sight of Adam, my grandson, deep in conversation with Marcus, a former student whose raw talent had recently earned him a spot at a prestigious art school. At 17 and 15, they were an unlikely duo, Adam, with his chess champion's analytical precision, and Marcus, whose artistic soul burned bright with intuition. Yet there they were, heads bent together, their animated discussion a testament to a friendship forged in intellectual curiosity, bridging their differences with ease. Watching them, I felt a quiet thrill, knowing Marcus's journey had been shaped, in part, by the community center program I'd built, and that Adam, in his own way, was beginning to see the world through a broader lens. Sophia, my granddaughter, danced through the crowd in a dress she'd designed herself, its vibrant fabric a reflection of her bold spirit. She paused to explain the intricacies of pottery to an elderly couple, her voice brimming with confidence. "My grandma uses reduction firing for these pieces," she said, gesturing to a collection of vases with shimmering, unpredictable glazes. "That's why the colors shift like that. It's all about controlling the oxygen and the chemistry in the kiln." Her words, so assured, filled me with a quiet joy that bordered on awe. Once merely the recipient of my care, Sophia had become a partner in my creative world, weaving elements of my artistic journey into her own identity. Her enthusiasm wasn't just admiration. It was a spark of her own, a sign she was carving her own path with the same fearless creativity. Lisa approached, her presence steady and warm, a glass of sparkling water in her hand. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her eyes scanning me with concern. "You've been on your feet for hours." I waved off her worry, my excitement a shield against fatigue. "I'm fine," I assured her, too thrilled to feel tired. She studied me, her gaze softened by the quiet understanding that had grown between us over the past year. Gone were the old assumptions, the unspoken expectations that once clouded our connection. Now there was only respect, clear and unshakable. "You're glowing," she said simply, a smile tugging at her lips. "It suits you." Daniel joined us, his arm slipping around to Lisa's waist with an ease that spoke of their shared history. "The university rep was impressed," he said, his tone matter-of-fact but proud. "She mentioned something about a visiting artist position in their ceramics department next semester." I nodded, already familiar with the possibility from an earlier conversation with the department chair. "Just one day a week," I said, excitement flickering in my chest. "It's a perfect fit with my Collins Foundation work and the community center." Lisa tilted her head, her eyes searching mine. "And your Arizona winter plans?" she asked, knowing how vital those months with Charlotte had become to my soul. "Non-negotiable," I replied with a grin. "The university knows my schedule is set." That ability to draw clear boundaries around my time was a revelation, a hard-won shift that had redefined my life. Once, I'd shaped my days around the needs of others, bending until I nearly broke. Now I crafted my commitments with intention, balancing my priorities without draining myself dry. Lisa squeezed my hand, her touch grounding. "Good," she said. "We'll miss you during those months, but the kid loved their Arizona vacations." That too was new. Lisa and Daniel bringing Adam and Sophia to visit me in Charlotte's sun-soaked home, building family traditions, rooted in joy rather than obligation. Those visits carried a lightness our old, duty-bound gatherings never had, each moment infused with shared laughter and connection. "Speaking of the kids," Daniel said, glancing at his watch, "we should probably round them up. School night." Lisa nodded but lingered, her gaze sweeping the gallery, taking in the vibrant display of my work. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Not just for the exhibition, though it's incredible, but for everything you have built this year." Her words landed deep, a quiet acknowledgement of the transformation that extended beyond the art on the walls. It was about reconfiguring my life on my own terms, finding balance where there had once been sacrifice. "Thank you," I replied, my voice steady but full. "That means more than you know." As they moved to gather Adam and Sophia, Diane approached, accompanied by an elegant woman I recognized as Julia Stevens, the director of the Collins Foundation. "Eleanor, you remember Julia?" Diane said, her tone warm and professional. I shook Julia's hand, gratitude swelling in my chest. "Thank you for being here tonight," I said sincerely. "I wouldn't have missed it," Julia replied, her eyes scanning the gallery with appreciation. "This exhibition captures the heart of your curriculum. Seeing your personal evolution alongside the community pieces tells the exact story we want our program to share." I nodded, picking up her thread. "That art isn't just about technique or finished pieces," I said, "but about the process of transformation itself." Julia's eyes lit up. "Exactly," she said, gesturing toward a cluster of vessels crafted by participants in my hospital program. "These are especially powerful when you know the stories behind them." Each vessel in that collection was a testament to a patient's healing journey. Some smooth and symmetrical, others deliberately uneven. Some mended with the golden threads of kintsugi, embracing their cracks as part of their beauty. A small plaque explained how each artist had woven their medical experiences into their work, whether through the form, the texture, or the act of creation itself. "The book manuscript is taking a similar approach," I told her, excitement creeping into my voice. "It's less about teaching techniques and more about fostering spaces where authentic expression can flourish." Julia nodded, her approval clear. "That's what sets your work apart from traditional art therapy," she said. "The healing comes not from rigid protocols, but from the dignity of creating something meaningful in a supportive community." As they moved to explore other pieces, Charlotte appeared at my side, radiant in a turquoise dress adorned with handcrafted silver jewelry from her favorite Arizona artisans. Well, sister mine, she said, linking her arm through mine with a playful grin, you've come a long way from that tearful call about being left out of Thanksgiving. I laughed, her bluntness a familiar comfort. That feels like another lifetime, I said, and in many ways it was. The sting of that exclusion had been a catalyst, forcing me to confront patterns I'd long ignored, to set boundaries, to reclaim parts of myself I'd buried under years of caregiving. You were right about the journal, I told her, thinking of the turquoise notebook she'd given me during one of our Arizona retreats. Writing through those early choices helped me see what I truly wanted. Charlotte tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with mischief. And what was that exactly? She asked, though we had had this conversation countless times. Balance, I said without hesitation. Connection without obligation. Creativity without apology. The freedom to give from a place of fullness, not depletion. She nodded, satisfied. And to think some people thought you were just sulking over a dinner invitation and a mortgage payment. Her bluntness pulled a laugh from me. Maybe it looked that way at first, I admitted, but the results tell a different story. She gestured around the gallery, her arms sweeping wide. Look at all you've built, not just the art, but the programs, the relationships, the legacy. Legacy. The words settled into me, heavy with meaning. It wasn't the legacy I'd once imagined, one tied to securing Lisa's comfort or meeting others' expectations. This was richer, more layered, a testament that transformation is possible at any stage of life, that boundaries can open new pathways, that endings can be beginnings in disguise. As the evening wound down, I found myself standing before my favorite piece, a large vessel born in those early, uncertain months after I reclaimed my time. Its surface was raw, marked by fingerprints and tool scratches, imperfections I'd chosen to keep rather than erase. Inside, visible only from above, a spiral of tiny ceramic flowers climbed from the base to the rim, a delicate ascent of growth and possibility. Titled simply, Becoming, it was a quiet nod to the truth that growth is never complete, that each season of life offers new chances to evolve. Dr. Wilson paused beside me, his eyes tracing the vessel's textured surface. This one gets me every time, he said, his voice thoughtful. There's something about the contrast between the rough exterior and that hidden flowering inside. I smiled, warmed by his insight. Someone once told me the finest things carry the marks of their history, I said. I think that's true of people too. As the last guest began to drift away, Lisa approached with Adam and Sophia, both reluctant to leave the energy of the gallery. We're heading out, she said, then handed me a small wrapped package. But first, a little exhibition gift from all of us. Inside was a silver pendant, a miniature pottery wheel with a tiny vessel perched atop it, its craftsmanship exquisite. Daniel found an artisan who makes custom pieces for life transitions, Lisa explained. We thought it captured this moment in your journey. The gesture moved me deeply, not just for its beauty, but for what it signified. Lisa saw me not only as her mother, but as a woman with a creative identity worth celebrating. It's perfect, I said, fastening it around my neck. I'll treasure it. Sophia darted back for one last hug, her voice fierce and whispered. I'm going to be like you when I grow up, Grandma. Strong and artistic and brave. Her words caught me off guard, a reminder that my choices rippled outward, shaping not just my life, but the dreams of those watching. You'll be your own version of those things, I told her, smoothing her hair. That's even better. After the gallery emptied, I wandered through the quiet space, each piece a story of learning, healing, and connection. Together, they told of a journey sparked by a single act of self-respect, that canceled mortgage payment, that had unlocked a cascade of change. As I prepared to leave, my phone chimed with a text from Charlotte. Forgot to mention, found the perfect spot for that summer pottery retreat we talked about. Sedona Mountains, cabins with private studios, room for 12 students. Say yes, and I'll book it tomorrow. I smiled, typing back without hesitation. Yes, absolutely yes. That word, once reserved for others' needs, now carried the weight of my own dreams, offered mindfully, joyfully, and most importantly, to myself.